be really grateful.
Was he an edgy sort of person?
Yes, highly strung, I'd say.
Tim Hale regularly served him petrol.
Well, generally we, thought he was a bit strange, but, just quiet. If anything, sort of eccentric.
So you were never worried by him as such?
No, I never felt any danger.
Bryant's home has already become a curiosity. He lived here in Clare Street in inner suburban Hobart in a house left to him by an elderly spinster. He also inherited her Tattersalls fortune, worth around $650,000.
Martin's been diagnosed as schizophrenic. He has been from a very young age, I think at about 3 years old. He's very childlike in his personality. He's got the mind of about a 9-year-old.
3 years ago, Melinda lived with the Bryant family for 5 months.
Martin's father committed suicide 2 years ago, and that could have contributed to his condition.
What was his dad like?
Sort of an opposite. He'd look you straight in the eye, outgoing sort of person that would talk to you.
There's a sense of horror, anger and disbelief among the neighbours in this quiet street. Martin Bryant is now a name that will haunt many of them as they think back to the times when they used to see him around his place, and while he kept to himself, he seemed completely harmless. Scott Goldsmith lives opposite. Did he ever strike you as being odd?
Oh, yeah. He didn't want to speak, you could tell, he just sort of like, you talk to him and he'd move away from you and all that, but yeah, so there's always a bit of a drama, but I didn't think, who'd imagine he'd do something like this, so.
The only way Martin used to draw attention to himself in public was with his clothing.
Silver-coloured suits and gold jackets and all sorts of white bowler hats and type things like that.
According to those who know Bryant, he only recently developed a taste for high-powered guns. It was mixed with a taste for violent videos like these. Experts who study crimes like the ones Bryant stands accused of say this is far too often a chilling combination.
These types of movies, these types of books can be used to validate his own thoughts, because there it is being portrayed in another medium, and here am I thinking about them, so it must be okay.
Former Victoria Police Inspector Claude Minesini studied with the FBI.
Was his fascination with mass murder, perhaps, of such a nature that he wanted to be the biggest and the best?
Community anger is now being directed at staff in the hospital where Bryant is being treated along with his victims. As well as the graffiti, there have been threatening phone calls.
It's quite disturbing, of course, the staff and so on that have got to go through, a very rough time trying to sort of look after the person concerned and also go through what is a very sort of upsetting process today.
Hospital Chief Executive Lindsay Pine.
He's certainly isolated from all other patients and all other areas, and the security is extremely tight and will remain that way until the justice system sorts it out.
It's fairly easy to clean the anger off the hospital walls. Dealing with the feelings will take much longer.
Mark O'Brien reporting there. I can only stress again that Martin Bryant has not been convicted of any crime. He's yet to have his day in court. When we come back, we'll see how silly our gun laws really are.
Have been made against Bryant, who was today officially charged with 1 count of murder. There are also legal concerns about him getting a fair trial in Tasmania after being widely identified in the local media. The Tasmanian government, meanwhile, may ban the sale of rapid-fire weapons as early as next week. The death toll is now officially 35. Today, video pictures revealed Bryant's capture. Hugh Remington has our first report.
Roger. There's a house fire at the stronghold.
Captured on home video, these are the final fiery moments of the siege at Seascape Cottage. As police move in from the right, an officer in black is seen next to a window. Suddenly he grabs Martin Bryant and appears to wrestle him to the ground. The suspect's clothing still on fire.
Yankee 1-1. Stage not required.
More police race in and the gunman is overpowered. The siege of Port Arthur and one man's murderous rampage finally over. The suspect tonight remains in isolation at Royal Hobart Hospital. He is surrounded by never fewer than a dozen police and uniformed security guards.
He's under strong police guard at the hospital and will remain so till he's moved elsewhere.
Today, Martin Bryant, 29 years old next week, faced the first legal consequences of his alleged actions. Magistrate Peter Dixon convened a special bedside court to charge the suspect formally with one count of murdering Kate Elizabeth Scott. Amid the grief and disbelief, the streams of shattered relatives, there is growing rage here. A community that tolerates the slackest gun laws in the country favours old values. This fresh graffiti on the hospital wall, hundreds of calls to the hospital demanding why the suspect in Australia's worst civilian slaughter is being treated for his pains. Phone calls threatening revenge.
We've had some suggestion that his life might be at risk, yes.
I reckon they should bloody throw him out on the street. Let everyone have a go at him.
Late today, the 35th victim's body was recovered from Seascape Cottage. He was a young lawyer from Sydney, the companion of Sydney solicitor Zoe Ann Hall, who was also killed, aged 28. This afternoon, the eye for an eye graffiti was being scrubbed away in Hobart. Those many people who suffered irrecoverable losses this week will wish their grief so easily punged. Tonight at Hobart St David's Cathedral, final preparations are underway for perhaps the saddest event in its 150th.
The Seascape guest house were the last to die. It's now thought they might have been the first to be murdered. Natasha Johnson reports.
As police discovered the body of the third hostage in the burnt-out remains of the once quaint Seascape guest house, a bizarre twist of this tragedy emerged. The possibility that the cottage's owners were not the last victims, but the first. Police are investigating reports that 2 or 3 tourists tried to check into Seascape between 12:30 and 1 o'clock on Sunday, but were turned away by an agitated young man, raising the possibility that Seascape's owners were killed an hour before the rampage at the Port Arthur historical site.
That's as good a possibility as any, that he went to the house first, shot those people and then went to the historic site.
A group of grieving relatives paid a visit to the place where their loved ones perished amid growing expectation that the tea house where so many died will be demolished. But for Tasmanian pharmacist Walter Mickak, who lost his wife Nanette and 2 daughters, Alana aged 6 and Madeline 3, nothing can erase the anguish.
It's like in an afternoon my whole life's just been erased.
Helen Harvey, an heir to the Tattersalls' fortune, sharing her home until she died in a car accident.
That Martin Bryant is deeply troubled is now painfully obvious, but it's still not known what drove this man who stands accused of killing 35 people. Those who knew him give conflicting accounts, from the farmer who claims Bryant threatened to shoot him to the city neighbour who found him quiet, if not a little shy.
He wouldn't talk unless you talked first, and he never asked any questions or kept the conversation going.
One woman who shared a house with Bryant has a more chilling recollection.
I'd lock the door at night if I was there by myself, because he was so unpredictable. You just weren't sure what he might do.
Martin Bryant first met Helen Harvey more than 5 years ago when he came here to work as her gardener. As the years passed, they became closer. Eventually, their relationship was like mother and son. Bryant would follow her everywhere, even to Hobart's public cemetery, where she would visit her mother's grave. That's where she too is now buried after a car accident in 1992. Helen Harvey was born and bred in Hobart. She was to become an heir to the Tattersalls' fortune. She loved animals and kept dozens of dogs and cats in her Hobart home. While she was a shy woman, her generosity to charities was well known.
She was always sort of doing things for other people, but not in the public area. She kept out of the public life.
In her will, she took care of Bryant, snubbing her family to leave him almost $650,000. Among the estate, a farm in Copping and a home in Hobart. For 12 months, he lived in that house alone. Inside, police found more weapons and ammunition and horror movies. In all that time, few people ever came to visit.
I can't ever see anybody turn up except his mum. I've spoken to her a couple of times. I feel very, very sorry for his mum. She seemed like a lovely lady.
Today, she was being visited by family friends and is said to be devastated. John Vors, The Nightline.
Prime Minister.
Put in place were comfortable about the way in which we could handle that. We took advice from the bomb people in advance of the hearing.
But the alleged gunman was not physically at the court. Instead, in a first for the Tasmanian legal system, he was appearing via video link from his cell at Risdon Jail. When Bryant appeared on the video screen, he showed no emotion. His face seemed expressionless, his eyes were wide open, and he tossed his head from side to side. The only time he spoke was when asked if he understood the remand conditions, and he said, "Yes, I do." Bryant, who was seated in a wheelchair throughout the 1-minute-long hearing, was formally remanded until the 18th of June. He'll then appear again via video link. His appearance on video today was said to have been necessary because of Bryant's medical condition and concerns for Bryant's and court staff security. Do you think Mr. Bryant's welfare would have been put at great jeopardy had he been brought to this court today?
I think that's a speculative question. There is obviously a possibility that that may have occurred, and that was a factor which dictated the arrangements which were put in place through the court.
Justice Department officials are not willing to speculate on when Bryant's case will finally go to trial. It may not be prior to Christmas. Until then, he'll be remanded via video every 28 days, but when he does go to trial, it's likely he will have to appear in person. And the Justice Department is confident he will get a fair trial.
I don't see any reason why the trial shouldn't go ahead in Tasmania in the way in which any other trial would go ahead. I don't think there's any doubt about that. We're certainly not treating this in any way as if there's any risk that there may not be a fair trial.
Norm Beeman, 10 News.
And Norm Beeman joins us live from Hobart. Morning, Norm.
Morning, Jason.
You're among a crowd of reporters covering that court appearance. You weren't actually allowed in the courtroom, though.
No, there was no journalists in the court itself because it was so small. In fact, we're all in a room off to the side, still within the court precinct, but off to a room to the side which was connected via video from the court and another video from Bryant's cell. It was a fairly incredible feeling in that room because there were so many journalists there, about 30 to 40, from distant locations all around Australia. And they were all there, even though they knew it was going to be the briefest of court appearances, as it turned out to be, with Bryant uttering just 3 words.
And what was it, about 60, 90 seconds, all up?
About 60 seconds, I would say.
OK, and you got a glimpse of Bryant as he was brought in?
He was already in situ in his cell when they turned on the video screen from Risdon, and then it was obvious that he was sitting in a wheelchair.
OK, now what's the latest on his medical condition?
Yeah, the head of the Justice Department said that he still was receiving extensive medical treatment, and he said he was undergoing skin grafts, mainly for the area of his back. He said that he thought there was sufficient medical staff or facilities at Risdon Jail to overcome the possibility of having to move him back into Hobart Hospital to have any further treatment, and thereby incurring a security risk.
And he uttered just 3 words?
Yes, when asked whether he understood his remand conditions, he just said, "Yes, I do."
All right, then, Norm Beeman, thank you very much for that report. Norm Beeman in Hobart.